You know, I had that TR6060. I was planning on converting. The problem with the TR6060, the bell housing, had the integrated bell housing with this front faceplate, so I couldn't do a separate bell housing that made it to the 2J, which is what I needed. I was gonna send it out to get converted to a faceplate with the separated bell housing. But when I sent it off, they looked at it. I guess first and second gear were kind of trashed. Again, I got that second hand. Lesson learned. It wasn't expensive, so that's why I jumped on it anyway. But again, so I started looking at CDO9 options as well as the BMW trans options, the SMGs mostly. I was gonna do that. That was probably the cheapest option. That was probably gonna be pretty reliable as well. But ultimately, I decided to just go ahead, bite the bullet, go with the Tremec, the Magnum-F in this case. Strongest transmissions pretty much you can get in stock form as far as 6-speed goes. Like, it's not too much out there that's better than that, if anything. So got all this from Grannas Racing, Joe Grannas. So Tremec, Magnum-F trans, close ratio. For the clutch, I got the McCloy. I'm not sure, I'm probably butchering the name of the name. I did the RXT. This is, I can't take it apart right now, but you'll see it later on, but this is a twin disc. It is a, it's not full face, it's a separated, I think it's like a ceramic material. But it's twin disc, it is a solid disc, so I did want a sprung disc, but the way Joel says he sets these up with the clutch, the raw bearing option, is actually pretty smooth and very streetable. He has a couple videos of him, you know, showing it from a dead stop, no gas, just easing out the clutch pedal, and seems to work pretty well. They do have a tilting one that's twin disc and sprung as well. This full face is organic. I wanted that one, but that one was like 1,000 more. Same power, you know, this is supposed to hold, according to McLeod's website, 1,000 horsepower, so like 800 foot-pounds of torque. Grannas races at 800 horsepower on his site, so that should be roughly maybe 600 pound-feet of torque, which I don't plan on doing too much more than that. 800 horsepower, I want to at least hit 8. That's kind of my goal. So this is perfect what I need. This kit comes with everything I need to mount it to the trans. So this is kind of like the adapter for the tilting. The raw bearing actually screws onto this face here. You'll see that later. This is the 6000 series tilting the raw bearing. We'll set that up. Comes with my ARP hardware I need. This is for my flywheel, the crank. Trans cross member for the E46. The rubber bushing for it, or actually it probably goes this way, but got that as well. All the hardware you need, and then the bell housing. So this is again why I needed a separate style bell housing. Trans. So this will allow me to make up to the 2J. Got the Grannas Racing logo on there. So again, that's it. So I just wanted to run through quickly what I had. This should be a pretty good setup for what I'm looking for. So hopefully it is. So now I gotta go ahead and get the engine off the stand. I'm gonna go ahead and actually install the clutch, make the trans and stuff up. I gotta check my air gap, check my throw bearing and my clutch. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to do all that. I gotta move all the stuff to get my engine hoist out. But this was just a quick rundown of everything we got. So hopefully we'll get this done. This kid's out here, sorry. We'll see what goes on, and stick with me. Starter's still there, everything is good to go. Rear main seal looks good. I actually replaced this not too long ago, so that's good. So next thing I'm gonna do is go ahead and throw the pilot bearing in. This is specific. This pilot bearing is specific for the 2J for the T56 Magnum. Comes from Grannas Racing as well, again with the kit. So this pilot bearing will fit right on there. Once I put the trans in, that is. So I'm gonna go ahead. There's a little bit of rust in here, looks like. I'm gonna go ahead and try to clean some of that out. And to put it on, all I'm gonna do is simply find myself a socket that has pretty much the same diameter as the outer race. Want to make sure you hit on the outer race, not the inner one. This is a 19. It's a little too small. Go up a size. Still a little too small. Cool. So my 24 Pittsburgh is perfect. I'm actually gonna use this back end instead of the front end. I could use the front end actually as well. Doesn't matter, but you see it pretty much lines up perfectly. And actually, if I use this side, the ring should fit right on the outer race portion. So I'm gonna use this. All I'm gonna simply do is kind of start it, the pilot bearing in the back of the crank. Now I use this one rubber mallet, kind of slam it on there, and yeah, it's pretty easy. Cool. So I used that piece of wood to kind of make it more even, at least to get it to start, and then put it in there. And then you'll see here, there's kind of like a little cave in for the lip. Pretty much want to stop right there. So there it is. Much about right where it needs to be. Cool. That's done. Still spins freely. Good to go there. So I went ahead also and kind of cleaned out these bolt holes for the flywheel. So those should be good to go. So pretty much my next step, next thing I need to do is, next thing I'll do, start getting the clutch set up. So I need to at least put the flywheel on the clutch, on, all that on, so I can put the bell housing on, take my measurement, so I can check for my air gap for the clutch. So I'll do that. I'll get the clutch over here. We'll get started on that. Cool. All right. Let me get this clutch apart, and then I can kind of show you what we got going on here. All right, while I'm getting this pressure plate off, just talk about the clutch a little bit more. Again, this is the McLeod RXT, rated for 1,000 horsepower on their website. I think Grannas rates it at 100 on theirs, but the McLeod actual website rates it at 1,000. It's twin disc, segmented ceramic lined, so it's supposed to help it be nice and streetable, still be able to handle all that power. Again, they have an RXT 1200, which uses the same clutch disc, the exact same clutch disc. This has a different pressure plate with more clamping force.
So I know these clutch discs can take even more power than what I'm throwing at it. My main thing was the streetability, which this should be with the tilting clutch, tilting throwout pairing setup. It should be nice and streetable. I also like that the floater disc is strapped. You see it has little straps that come off of it to hold it down instead of it being with the kind of little forks that go around the stands. It's kind of like metal on metal, and that's what has a lot of the chatter with clutches. So the straps will help eliminate a lot of that chatter, or should eliminate it altogether pretty much. Other than that, it should be able to handle what I'm throwing at it. It came balanced. There are markings on the pressure plate, the floater disc, the flywheel, so you know how to line it back up. I accidentally almost raced it when I cleaned it with brake cleaner, so be careful when you do that. Make sure you know where it is. I was able to find a little bit of the marks left, remark them. So yeah, other than that, put it together. Hopefully get this in the car and see how it is. It should be a good clutch. It'll be a nice setup, so I'm excited.
All right, cool. So now that I got the clutch in, you see my stands are fully compressed. This is torqued per manufacturer. Still got plenty of room for the alignment tool. So now I have to get the bell housing on. Enter the Grannas bell housing. I try to make sure I cleaned off my dowels. So he does sell a index plate that you put on the end of this to actually index and basically make sure that the bell housing is square, or your input shaft is basically square in the pilot bearing. I know they said some of these dowels may be like a little off between castings, so your input shaft from the transmission may be like at a slight angle, which wears the bearings in the transmission quicker. Yeah, I didn't do that. I should have done that, but I didn't. It seemed like it's more of an issue with the QuickTime, the steel bell housing, but I know he has had a couple issues with the aluminum in the past. Hopefully, I won't have that issue, but we'll see. So, bell housing is on. Torque for the specs, he said, which was 50 foot-pounds. Torque 50 foot-pounds. So now I need to check. We got anything here. I can take that out for now. Now I'm gonna check for my numbers for my air gap. So I need to get a straight edge and then some depth gauges. All I'm doing is taking this straight edge, putting it here. So this is essentially where basically the front of the trans is gonna be. And then I'm gonna measure one of the front fingers. Again, I want to make sure I'm measuring from the back. The back does not, it's gonna probably look like I'm at the front, but I'm at the back. Let me zero this thing out first. Cool, so rechecked it, pretty much came out to 66.33. So that's the number I'm gonna use later. So I got that number now. I could actually take the bell housing back off and actually lock tight and finalize the clutch install. All right, bell housing is on. All the bolts took. There are 2 bolts at the bottom, one on this side, and then there is also one back here. There it is. It goes into the aluminum. So be careful with those. All the other ones actually going into the iron casting. So minus the 2 starter bolts, be careful with those as well. Don't over torque them. The rest. But I torqued them all to 50 foot-pounds. That's what it says on the packaging. So everything comes nicely labeled. So this said 50 foot-pounds. So next, it'll be the actual trans bolts. These are 40 foot-pounds, so those will go in there. But before I do that, I gotta go ahead and set up. I gotta go ahead and get the throwout bearing on and get that set up for the air gap for the measurement that I took earlier. So, all right, on to our next step. All right, so next up, to install this, pretty much mount. This will allow the tilting to thread on. He provides the bolts for that. I am going to put a little blue Loctite on these. Pretty sure he said these don't have to be crazy tight. And again, this is threading into aluminum, so I don't want it to be crazy and stripped or something. So it feels about the same for both. Cool. All right, so that's done. This is the Tilton. This is a 6000 series. I do hate they had a sticker up here, so I need to actually try to get this off right quick. So I'm gonna do that right fast, and I shall be right back. All right, got it cleaned off. I really hate that they did that, but so what I'm about to do now is measure for my air gap. So essentially, once you bolt everything up, there should be about a 3 to 4 millimeter gap between throwout bearing and actual pressure plate, literally like an air gap. And that's just so when the pressure plate wears, these fingers are probably gonna loosen up a little bit and get closer. And if this is already down, when it wears, if it's no air gap there, it's just touching here and this is already bottomed out, basically your pressure plate's not gonna be able to have the full force clamping load on there because it's gonna be being held back a little bit by the fingers. So that's what the air gap's for. So the air gap will literally be there first, but once you bleed it, once you bleed the actual throwout bearing, the bearing itself is gonna take up the air gap. So it'll be something like this. So this is now your air gap. So once the pressure plate grows, it can kind of push this back in, but you want to make sure it's always, the throwout bearing has the ability to basically allow the pressure plate to grow that little bit. I don't want it too far out because then once I actually go to press the clutch, if it's too far out, you know, this may pop off. I don't want that to happen. Don't want it to be too close because again, it may ride on the pressure plate and not let it use the full clamping load. So 3 to 4 millimeters is what's recommended. That'll give you room for this to grow, for the pressure plate kind of to grow once it wears a little bit, and it should be good to go. So measurement from earlier, from this to the flat surface was 66.33 millimeters. So essentially now what I'm gonna do is put the throwout bearing on the trans. This surface right here, the trans, is what's mating up to the surface here that I've already did the measurement for. So I put my flat edge here, and I measure to the front face of the throwout bearing, and I can just use the map. I also subtract my, what was it, 3 to 4 millimeters from my 66. So basically I'm looking for, this should be 63.33 is what I'm looking for, around there. All right, so I'm gonna actually just set my dial indicator on that. Zero it out. All right, so got that set, locked it in. And again, basically I can just use my flat edge, or if I want to just put the bearing to pretty much right where this will be, go ahead and screw it on a little bit. That doesn't mean I can use it that way as well, but that depends on, we'll see where we're at. Cool. So to do this one, all right, you see the front face of the bearing. Here's my flat edge. I can essentially do the same as I did before. I'm measuring to the surface here. According to this, I went a little too far. Maybe one turn. Cool, I'm gonna leave it right there. So the kit comes with, I'm gonna leave it there, that gave me 62.57. So that's still within that 4. And again, this might be some slight deviations for error, but the bearing was already pushed in. And then essentially what I do now is is four holes threaded on here. There are 4 holes threaded on different spots, and you see the tab here. Use these shoulder bolts to lock it in place. This one's gonna be definitely too long, so I'll need to use the shorter one. And then I'll lock that in right here. I'm gonna put a little blue Loctite on this one as well. Cool. Again, not gonna do too crazy on it. So I'm gonna measure one more time just to kind of re-verify, since I got it kind of finalized where I want it. Cool. Yep, good with that. Still getting around 62.5-ish. All right, cool. So that's my air gap setup. Shouldn't go anywhere. Says he's never had one of those bolts break, those shoulder bolts. Again, that's why I Loctite it, just to make sure. So essentially, this is pretty good. I can go ahead and throw it on, but what I'm gonna do is cover these. He recommends running them through this big opening, the bigger opening in the bottom, instead of, I think factory, they kind of have it coming through here. But with the trans-tonal, sometimes it gets tight here. This kind of leaves more opening. So I'm gonna run it through the bottom as well. And then, just to make sure these lines, these are braided PTFE, but I don't want them to get cut on any of these sharp edges. So I'm gonna cover these with some, I think I got some heat shielding. So I'm gonna use that and cover these real quick. I also need to put the bleeder line on. So I put that on this top one. Leader line feeds right in. Then I'll make sure to tighten those. Now the hard part, getting the trans on. All right, here we have it. Magnum-F made it to the 2J using the Grannas belt housing, McLeod twin disc RXT, tilt and throw out bearing, and all the Grannas conversion. I actually had to untorque the pressure plate, kind of realign the clutch disc. Like the alignment tool was going in fine, but I couldn't get the trans in. Finally, I realigned it a little bit. It seemed like they were kind of like maybe angled down, so I used the tool to kind of like angle them up a little bit. That seemed to help. I got the dowel pins, like pretty much just 2 dowels on each side from the trans that goes into the back of the belt housing. Before, it had like a little gap where I couldn't get them to touch, and this time they touched, and I was able to get some bolts started. And I just used the bolts to pull them on. I didn't have to put any torque really in them. I was one-handing them. It was pulling on freely, so should be good to go. I just threw the little shift handle on for now. Yeah, I'm gonna check and see if I can see this air gap. That's what I wanted to look for. Just to make sure I didn't put too much or too little. Should be able to look through this. Cool. All right. Cool, and you see right there, there's a little gap between the throwout bearing and the fingers. It's hard to make it out, but it is there. And that's exactly what I wanted. So once I bleed the clutch, the throwout bearing will kind of push out and actually touch and make contact, and I'll have the gap kind of in the throwout bearing itself at 3-4 millimeters. So that actually worked out really well. Gap actually looks perfect for how I wanted it. Yeah, man, so that was it. It wasn't too terrible. Again, everything went pretty easy. The hardest part was, again, getting the trans, made it back up. Again, doing this stuff by yourself. By the time I got to that step, it was kind of late. So I didn't really have anybody I could call. I probably did, but I didn't want to bother anybody. So again, I put transmissions on before. This is my first twin disc I've had to put on, but firm, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, neutral. Seems like it's gonna be pretty good. Positive engagement. I like it. Cool. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm tired. I said it's probably only took maybe, I think you can do this in 4 or 5 hours with some help or staying proper equipment. Obviously, doing this on the floor, it worked out though. So I'm gonna call it for the night. And that's pretty much it. Like I said, it's pretty easy install. Just gotta finagle that trans in there, lifting that
whatever, 90, 80, 90, 100 pounds by yourself ain't easy, but we in there. So as always, I appreciate y'all sticking with me. Again, some more stuff coming. Pretty much this is all I needed to put this thing in the car. Like I said, I try to deal with the registration stuff, pull that engine out. I still do have to get the drive shaft. I'm gonna order that probably next week. And then I got everything to physically put the engine, transmission, drive shaft to the wheels. Then I just have to worry about the little other odds and ends, you know. But we're making progress, so there you have it. Magnum-F, Grannas kit, 2JZ. Appreciate y'all. Holla at your boy.